I kept staring at the hospital wristband on my nightstand because my husband's name was still printed on it, and he was already gone, and I stayed quiet like the sound might shatter me. But what I couldn't understand was this. How was I supposed to keep our newborn safe when the person who promised he would never leave us didn't even get a goodbye? My name is Lorelai, I'm 30 years old, and I work as a surgical scheduler at a busy hospital. The day I brought our son home, the house smelled like clean laundry and bottled formula and that soft, powdery baby soap everyone swears by. My husband, Rhodes, moved like he had been training for fatherhood his whole life. He had the burp cloth ready before the spit up happened. He knew where the pacifiers were without looking. When the baby cried, he didn't panic. He just leaned in like the baby was speaking a language he'd always understood. We fought for this baby, years of appointments, awkward calendars, negative tests that felt personal. I told myself I'd be grateful for every moment, even the hard ones. And then 3 weeks later, Rhodes stood in the kitchen, one hand on the counter, the other holding our son against his chest. His face went pale in a way I can still see when I close my eyes. "You okay?" I asked. He tried to smile. It was a thin, fake smile. "Yeah, just dizzy. Probably not sleeping enough." I stepped closer. "Rhodes, sit down." He took one step, and then he didn't. The sound he made when he hit the floor wasn't dramatic. It was small. A dull thud, like the house tried to swallow it. Our baby started crying immediately, sharp and offended, like he could feel the universe tilt. I remember how my hands shook dialing emergency services. I remember kneeling beside Rhodes, telling him my name like he'd forgotten it, telling him he had to breathe, he had to stay, he had to come back. I remember the operator's voice staying calm, while my voice turned into something animal. The paramedics moved fast. They took over my living room like it belonged to them. One of them gently lifted our son from my arms and set him in his bassinet, and my baby's cry turned into that raw, panicked screaming that makes you want to rip your own skin off just to fix it. Someone said, "unknown cardiac event," like those words were a blanket. Then the front door closed behind them. Then my house got quiet. I didn't scream. Not then. I didn't collapse. I walked to the bassinet, picked up my son, and pressed my face into his little head like I could hide in him. I remember thinking very clearly that I had to stay upright because he couldn't even hold his own head up. He couldn't even understand what just happened. At the hospital, the waiting room lights were too bright and too clean. The chairs were vinyl and cold and impossible to get comfortable in. A holiday music station played softly somewhere in the background. Like a joke nobody had the decency to turn off. I held my baby and watched my reflection in the dark screen of a turned-off television. I looked like someone else, like a woman who had been erased and rewritten in a single afternoon. When the doctor finally came, he had that face people wear when they've said the words 100 times, but it never gets easier. I saw his mouth moving before I understood what he was saying. "I'm so sorry." Those 3 words hit harder than anything else. Not the medical explanations, not the paperwork, not the gentle offers for counseling. Just, "I'm so sorry." Like the universe had made its decision. I walked out of the hospital with our son in a bag of Rhodes's, things that smelled like his soap. I got into my car and sat there for a long time. My baby fell asleep against me. My arms ached, but I didn't move him. I didn't even breathe too hard. I was terrified that if I shifted, I'd lose something else. The first night alone felt like standing on the edge of a cliff with my baby strapped to my chest. I didn't sleep, not real sleep. I blinked. I drifted. I jolted awake with my heart racing because I couldn't remember where my baby was for 1 second, even though he was right there, warm and real, screaming at me like he was angry I'd dared to close my eyes. He hated the bassinet, hated it like it had betrayed him. The moment I tried to set him down, his tiny face turned red, and his cry climbed higher and higher until it felt like it was coming from my own throat. So I held him all day, all night. My back felt like it belonged to an old woman. My arms went numb sometimes. I'd start dozing without permission, my head dipping forward, and terror would slam me awake because I knew what could happen if I fell asleep holding him. When I finally put him down anyway, when it became too dangerous not to, he screamed until his voice went hoarse. He cried himself to sleep, and I sat there with tears sliding down my face, whispering apologies into the dark like he could understand. Food became a problem I didn't know how to solve. Cooking while holding him felt like balancing a candle over gasoline. I tried making a simple soup once, thinking I could be careful, but he squirmed in my arms at the wrong second, and the fear hit me so hard I turned off the stove and slid down onto the kitchen floor with him shaking. I smelled like sweat and milk and grief. I wanted a shower so badly my skin felt itchy, but the second I stepped away from the bassinet, the crying started again. Not a gentle fuss, a betrayal cry. A "why are you leaving me" cry. People told me, "sleep when the baby sleeps." They said it like it was a trick I hadn't thought of. They didn't understand that when my baby slept, I watched him breathe. I watched his chest rise and fall like it was the only proof I had that life still existed in my house. I watched because Rhodes had looked alive that morning too. He'd kissed my forehead. He'd made coffee. He'd said, "We're okay." And then he wasn't. The funeral was a blur of casseroles and condolences. Everyone kept telling me Rhodes was proud of me. Rhodes loved me. Rhodes would want me to be strong. I nodded politely because screaming felt like it would scare my baby. Rhodes's mother, Colette, came over the day after the funeral. She was quiet at first, the way some people get when they're trying not to fall apart. She held my baby like he was a fragile piece of Rhodes. She stared at his face for too long, then whispered, "He has your mouth." That should have been sweet. It made my stomach twist anyway, because after that she started saying little things, not cruel, not loud, but sharp enough to leave marks. "You look tired," she said, sitting at my kitchen table. "You're so thin." "I'm okay," I lied. She tapped her fingernail against the table. "You can't do this alone forever." The words sounded like concern, but her eyes didn't soften. Then came the first twist, the one that didn't feel emotional at all. It felt administrative, like pain in a suit. A letter arrived in the mail from Rhodes's employer. It came in a plain envelope, the kind that makes your pulse spike before you even open it. I stood over the trash trash can like the paper might explode. Inside was a notice about benefits, life insurance, payout pending review. Pending review. I read the next line 3 times before it made sense. Potential exclusion due to undisclosed pre-existing condition. My mouth went dry. My hands went cold. Rhodes didn't know. He didn't have a diagnosis. He didn't have a warning. He had been healthy, active, stubborn about doctor visits like half the men I've ever met. How could he disclose something nobody knew existed? I called the number on the letter. I waited through a cheerful automated message that said, "Your call is important to us," while my baby cried in the background. When a representative finally answered, her voice was pleasant in that way people get when they're trained to sound human. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said. "We just have to follow procedure." "What procedure?" My voice sounded calmer than I felt. It shocked me how flat I could sound when I was dying inside. "There was an emergency room visit last year," she said. My stomach dropped. "An emergency room visit?" "Yes," she said, like she was discussing a subscription. "Dizziness and chest discomfort." I remembered that night. Rhodes had come home pale after work and admitted he'd felt weird. I'd begged him to get checked. He'd gone, mostly to make me stop worrying. He'd sat in a crowded waiting room for hours, then got told it was likely dehydration and stress. He came home annoyed, laughing about the waste of time. They were using that. They were using one normal, scared visit, one moment of him trying to be responsible, as a reason to maybe deny his family. I swallowed hard. "What do you need from me?" "Medical records," she said. "And we'll need time." "How much time?" She paused. "We can't give an exact timeline." I hung up and stared at the wall. My baby's crying turned into that frantic hiccup cry that always makes my chest ache. And then, like the universe couldn't resist piling on, Colette showed up the next morning holding a folder. "I spoke to someone," she said, stepping into my house without waiting to be invited. My heart pounded. "You spoke to who?" "A lawyer friend," she said gently, like she was offering a blanket, "just to understand options." "Options?" I held my baby tighter. "Options for what?" Colette looked at my son, not at me. "For making sure he's taken care of." I went very still. My skin went cold in a way that had nothing to do with winter. I didn't accuse her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't do anything that would give her a clean reason to call me unstable. I just smiled, small and polite, like I believed she was only being helpful. "Okay," I said softly. "Thank you." Then I watched her relax, just a little. And that's when I knew she thought I was too tired to notice what she was really doing. Quick real-life pause. When I'm editing these late at night, I get tired. And your comments are what keep me going. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me your city, state, or country. Alright, now let me take you back. That afternoon, after she left, I laid my baby down long enough to pull up Rhodes's email on my laptop. My hands shook so badly I could barely type. I searched keywords. I didn't want to search. Doctor, chest, dizzy, insurance, benefits. At first, nothing. Then I found it. A thread from months ago, sent late at night. Rhodes writing to Human Resources. Not complaining, not dramatic, just careful, polite sentences. He mentioned that emergency room visit. He asked whether it could affect his coverage. He asked if he needed to fill out any additional forms. And the response from the company was short. No additional action needed. You are covered. I stared at that line until my eyes burned. My baby made a small sound from the bassinet, a tiny sleepy grunt like he was dreaming. And in that quiet, with Rhodes's words glowing on the screen, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to plead. I was going to do this the smart way, the quiet way. Because if they wanted to play paperwork games with a grieving mother holding a newborn, then fine. I had paperwork too. I opened a fresh notebook and wrote one sentence at the top like it was a vow. Stay calm, collect proof. Let them talk. My hands were still shaking, but my voice somehow had gone flat, like my grief had burned out the part of me that begged. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, the baby monitor beside it, and Rhodes's email thread glowing on the screen like a lighthouse. I forwarded it to myself, then saved it as a file, then printed it, because I didn't trust anything that could disappear with one wrong click. Then I did something else that felt almost wrong. I called Colette, not to fight, not to accuse, to invite. "Hey," I said softly, like I needed her, like I was grateful. "Could you come by tomorrow? I could really use some help. I haven't been sleeping." There was a pause. I heard the smallest inhale on her end, the sound of someone pleased, but pretending not to be. "Of course," she said. "I've been worried about you." I swallowed the anger that rose up. "Thank you." After I hung up, I stared at the wall again. The same wall I'd stared at the night Rhodes died. The same blank paint that had watched my life split in half. My baby fussed in the bassinet. I picked him up and paced, pressing my cheek to his warm head. He smelled like milk and sleepy breath. I whispered to him, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." And the words felt like a message to myself too. The next morning, Colette arrived with a bag of groceries and a tight smile. "I brought soup," she said, stepping into my kitchen like she belonged there. "You need to eat." "That's so kind," I said. I kept my voice gentle. I took the bag and thanked her again. She watched me like she was counting my blinks, like she was trying to measure whether I was falling apart the way she expected. "How was last night?" she asked. I let my shoulders sag on purpose. "Hard. I feel like I can't do anything. I can't even shower without him crying." Colette's face softened, but only halfway. "That's not good for him. Babies need calm." I nodded. "I know." Then I did the quiet thing, the smart thing. I pulled out my phone and turned on voice recording. Screen down on the counter like it was nothing. Colette sat at the table, folded her hands, and sighed like she was preparing a speech. "I talked to my lawyer friend again," she said. "He thinks we should get ahead of everything, just in case. Just in case." I kept my face blank. "In case of what?" "In case you know," she said slowly, choosing her words. "Struggle." My throat tightened, but I stayed quiet. I rocked my baby. I let him suck on a pacifier. I watched Colette watch me. "Rhodes would want what's best for the baby," she continued. "And if you're not sleeping, and you're alone, and you're overwhelmed, people start asking questions." "What people?" I asked very calmly. She shrugged. "Doctors, nurses, neighbors, anyone." My stomach twisted. "Are you saying someone might report me?" Her eyes flicked away, then back. "I'm saying these things happen." I nodded again, slowly, like I was absorbing her concern. concern. Okay. Colette's shoulders loosened. She thought she'd planted the seed. She thought I was too tired to notice she'd just hinted at a threat. Then came the first micro twist. She stood up, walked to my counter, and picked up a piece of mail that wasn't addressed to her. The benefits letter. The one about the life insurance review. She held it like it was hers. They're holding this up? She asked, eyebrows raised. That's not right. I know, I said, and forced my voice to tremble a little. I don't know what to do. Colette tapped the paper with her fingernail. If they deny it, you'll have to make decisions quickly. What kind of decisions? I asked. She looked at my baby again. Not me. About where you live. About help. About custody arrangements if you can't cope. My blood went cold. But I didn't snap. I didn't cry. I didn't give her the scene she could later describe as unstable. I just whispered, I'm trying. I really am. Colette's expression softened again, satisfied. I know you are. That's why I'm here. After she left, I went to the bathroom and quietly vomited from the adrenaline. Then I rinsed my mouth, washed my face, and stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes looked hollow. My hair was a mess. My skin was dull. But my hands were steady now. I took out the printed email from Rhodes's Human Resources thread and laid it on the table like a weapon. Nobody could call a weapon. I also printed the benefits letter. I wrote down the name of the representative I'd spoken to. Then I called the benefits office again, this time with my notebook open and my voice calm. I'm following up, I said. I have documentation showing Rhodes disclosed the emergency room visit and was told he was covered. I'd like to submit that. There was a pause, a different kind of pause than before, less cheerful. Let me see what I can do, the representative said. I also want to confirm, I added quietly, that the review is not being influenced by any third-party contact, including family members. Another pause. We can't discuss who contacts us. I'm not asking who, I said. I'm asking that you note my concern. She cleared her throat. I can note that. When I hung up, my baby started crying again. That angry, betrayed cry. I lifted him, bounced him gently, and whispered soothing nonsense. My arms ached, but something inside me felt sharper, like my grief was turning into focus. That night, I did something I hadn't done since Rhodes died. I slept. Not well, not long, but I set up the safest sleep space I could manage, low to the floor, nothing soft around us, and I let my body shut off for a few hours. When I woke up, my baby was still there, still warm, still breathing, still mine. I cried quietly into the dark, not because I was weak, but because I finally felt the tiniest crack of relief. The next day, a different letter arrived, not from the insurance, from the court. My hands went numb as I opened it. A petition for emergency guardianship had been filed. Colette's name was on it. For a moment, I couldn't hear anything, not even my baby's breathing. My vision tunneled, and the room swayed like I was going to faint. I sat down on the floor with my back against the couch, the paper shaking in my hands. Emergency guardianship. She had done it, while smiling at me, while bringing soup, while telling me she was worried. I stared at the line that claimed I was unable to provide safe care due to severe sleep deprivation and emotional distress. Severe, unable, unsafe. Words chosen carefully. Words designed to sound reasonable. I felt a hot wave of rage rise up, so strong it scared me. Then I looked at my baby. He was asleep in the bassinet for once. His little fists curled near his face, his mouth slightly open. He looked peaceful, innocent, completely unaware that adults were trying to turn him into a prize. My rage cooled into something else. Control. I didn't call Colette. I didn't text her. I didn't confront her. I called a family law attorney. My voice was calm when the receptionist answered, calm enough that I barely recognized it. I need an emergency consult, I said. My mother-in-law filed for guardianship of my infant. I have reason to believe she's also interfering with my late husband's life insurance review. There was a pause, then urgency. Can you come in today? Yes, I said. I can. I packed my diaper bag with shaking hands, then stopped and forced myself to slow down. I made a list. Diapers, wipes, bottles, extra, onesie, blanket, pacifier, the notebook, the printed emails, the benefits letter, the recording from yesterday. I didn't say the word recording out loud. It felt like a secret I had no right to have, but Colette had given me no choice. On the drive to the attorney's office, my baby cried in the back seat. I kept my eyes on the road, tears running silently down my cheeks. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. At the office, the attorney was a woman with tired eyes and a calm voice. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back and exhaled slowly. This is ugly, she said, but it's not uncommon. I flinched. Not uncommon? Grief makes people desperate, she said, and sometimes desperate people use the legal system like a weapon. My hands tightened around my notebook. What do? You do exactly what you're doing, she said. You stay calm. You document. You don't give her any emotional footage she can use against you. I swallowed. She's telling the court I'm unsafe. The attorney nodded. Then we show the court the truth. You've kept appointments. You've asked for help. You're taking responsible steps. And you have evidence she's pushing you, pressuring you, creating instability. I hesitated. I have a recording. The attorney's expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. Of what? Of her implying that people might report me. And talking about custody, I said quietly. The attorney held out her hand. Let me hear it. I played a small part, just enough. When it ended, the attorney nodded once. Good, that helps. My stomach turned. I feel guilty for recording her. Don't, she said. She filed emergency paperwork against you. She chose this. I walked out of that office with a plan. Not vengeance. Not chaos. A plan. That evening, I finally answered Colette's text. She'd written, I'm worried. We need to talk. I wrote back one word. Okay. Nothing else. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't beg her to stop because I knew something she didn't know. She thought I was drowning, but I had just learned how to swim quietly. The next morning, the benefits office called me back. Their tone was different now. Formal, cautious. We received your documentation, the representative said. We are escalating this review. And, I asked softly, and she said, we also need to ask, has anyone besides you contacted us regarding the claim? My heart didn't race. Not this time. Yes, I said calmly. My mother-in-law has been heavily involved. She filed for emergency guardianship of my infant yesterday. Silence on the line. Then the representative said carefully, thank you for letting us know. That is important. After I I hung up, I sat on my couch with my baby asleep on my chest. Sunlight came through the blinds in thin, pale stripes. The house was quiet in a way that felt almost sacred. I stared at Rhodes's photo on the mantle, the one where he's holding our baby in the hospital, eyes bright, grin wide like he couldn't believe he got to be this happy. "I'm still here," I whispered, "and I'm not letting anyone take him." My baby made a tiny sigh and settled deeper against me, trusting me without question. And in that moment, I realized the big mystery from the beginning wasn't just how single parents do anything. It was why someone who claimed to love my husband would try to break what he built. I was about to find out exactly how far Colette would go. I didn't sleep much after that, but I stopped panicking when I didn't sleep. I stopped treating exhaustion like a personal failure and started treating it like evidence. If I was going to be judged for being tired, then I was going to show exactly why I was tired and exactly who was making it worse. The attorney filed our response the same day. She also told me very plainly to stop being alone. "Not because you're unsafe," she said, "but because optics matter and because you deserve help." So I asked my cousin Selah to stay with me for a while. It was the first time I'd asked anyone for something that big, and saying the words out loud made my throat burn. Selah showed up with 2 grocery bags and a quiet confidence that felt like oxygen. She didn't make speeches. She didn't stare at me like I was about to collapse. She just took my baby from my arms and said, "Go shower. I've got him." I stood in the bathroom, water hitting my shoulders, and I cried so hard I had to sit down in the tub. Not because I was broken, because for the first time in weeks, I wasn't holding everything up with my bare hands. The court date came fast. Emergency hearings always do. The morning of it, I dressed my baby in a soft sleeper and kissed his forehead until he made a sleepy little noise like he was annoyed by the affection. "I'm coming back," I whispered, and felt stupid for saying it like he could understand, but I needed to hear it. I needed something in this world to be simple and true. At the courthouse, Colette looked calm, too calm. She wore a neat coat and a pearl necklace, like she was going to brunch, instead of trying to take my child. When she saw me, she put on a sad face, the kind that makes strangers feel sorry for her. "There you are," she said softly, like we were on the same team. "I've been so worried." I didn't answer. I only nodded once, polite. My attorney had warned me that anger could be used like a rope around my neck. Colette leaned closer. "We can do this the easy way, Lorelai. I just want what's best." I stared at her mouth moving and thought about Rhodes on the kitchen floor. I thought about the benefits letter. I thought about soup and threats wrapped in concern. Then I did the quiet thing again. "Okay," I said, and watched her relax. Inside the courtroom, the judge listened to both sides. Colette's lawyer spoke first, painting a picture with careful words. A grieving mother, alone, sleep-deprived, overwhelmed, a baby at risk, a grandmother stepping in out of love. I sat there with my hands folded, my face still. I felt like my skin didn't belong to me. Then my attorney stood. She didn't insult Colette. She didn't call her names. She didn't even raise her voice. She just laid out the timeline like a straight line of facts. My baby's appointment records, my postpartum check-ins, the messages I'd sent asking for short-term help, the grocery delivery receipts, the night Selah stayed over, the steps I'd taken to create safe sleep, the benefits letter, and the emails proving Rhodes disclosed everything and was told he was covered. Then she introduced the recording. Colette's words filled the courtroom, calm and sharp and poisonous under the sugar. The part where she said people start asking questions. The part where she talked about custody like it was inevitable. The part where she implied reporting me would be normal. Colette's face changed as her own voice played back, not into grief, into rage she couldn't hide. And that was the second micro twist, because she tried to interrupt. "That's out of context," she snapped, too loud, too fast. "She's twisting it." The judge lifted a hand. "Ma'am, you will not speak over counsel." Colette's mouth tightened. She turned and stared at me like I'd slapped her. I didn't react. I didn't blink. I stayed quiet, and she kept unraveling all by herself. My attorney's voice stayed steady. "This petition was not filed to protect the infant. It was filed to gain control. And we have reason to believe the petitioner has also attempted to interfere in a benefits claim by inserting herself into communications not meant for her." So the judge's eyes narrowed slightly. "Do you have evidence of that?" My attorney nodded. "We do. We have a call log, notes from the benefits office acknowledging third-party contact, and written documentation of coverage." Colette's lawyer shifted in his seat. He looked like someone who didn't enjoy surprises. The judge paused, then leaned forward. "Mrs. Colette, why did you contact the benefits office?" Colette blinked, and for a second she looked almost startled that the spotlight was on her. Then she recovered and put on the mask again. "I was trying to help," she said. "She's overwhelmed. She doesn't understand how these things work." The judge's gaze didn't soften. "Did she ask you to contact them?" Colette hesitated. "Just long enough." "No," she admitted. The judge nodded once like he'd just marked something down. "Then you overstepped." Colette's jaw flexed. Her eyes flicked to me again and I saw it. She hadn't expected consequences. She'd expected gratitude. The hearing ended with no emergency guardianship granted. The judge ordered no contact except through counsel until a full review could be completed. He also warned Colette directly that further interference could be considered harassment. When we walked out, my knees almost gave out from relief. Selah squeezed my shoulder as if she could hold me upright with one hand. Colette, however, followed us into the hallway. "You did this," she hissed at me, the mask finally gone. "You made me look like a monster." I looked at her, really looked. Her eyes were wet, but not from sadness, from humiliation. "I didn't make you anything," I said quietly. "I only stopped covering it up." Her face twisted. "Rhodes would hate this." That name hit me like a bruise. For half a second, I felt my throat close. Then the third micro twist arrived, not in the form of a person, but a phone call. My attorney's phone rang while we were still in the hallway. She listened, her expression changing from neutral to sharp focus. She covered the receiver and looked at me. "It's the benefits office." My heart kicked hard. I kept my face calm anyway. My body could panic later. My attorney stepped a few feet away, spoke quietly, then came back with her eyes bright. "They're approving the claim," she said, "and they flagged the file for fraud review." My stomach dropped. Fraud Fraud? She nodded once. Someone attempted to submit a beneficiary change request recently. The hallway tilted. I whispered, that's not possible. My attorney's voice stayed even. It is if someone had access to his documents, or his email, or his phone. Salah's hand tightened on my shoulder, and behind me, Colette went very still. I turned slowly. Colette's face had gone pale in that same sick way Rhodes's had the day he died. For a moment, she looked like she might faint. You tried to change it, I said. My voice was quiet, almost conversational. Colette's lips parted. Then she snapped them shut. My attorney looked at her like she was looking at a file, not a person. The company has the submission details, timestamps, email headers, IP information. If you did not do it, you should not worry. Colette's eyes flashed with panic. She spun on her heel and walked away fast, heels clicking like gunshots. Selah let out a long breath. Oh my God. I didn't chase her. I didn't yell. I didn't even say her name because I didn't have to. The benefits office called me the next day to confirm the approval in writing. They also told me carefully that their investigation was ongoing and that I might be contacted by their legal team. I didn't feel happy. Not exactly. I felt steady. That week, while going through Rhodes's things, I found something else. A small envelope tucked behind the frame of our wedding photo. It was sealed. My name written across the front in Rhodes's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter. He'd written it after that emergency room visit. Not dramatic. Not scared. Just practical. He wrote that he loved me. He wrote that if anything ever happened, he wanted me to know I was enough. He wrote that he trusted me to protect our baby, even if people tried to pull me apart when I was vulnerable. And then at the bottom, he wrote one line that made my breath catch. If my mom ever tries to take control, do not argue with her. Document everything. She does not stop until she loses. I sat on the floor with my baby sleeping against my chest and that letter in my hand. My tears fell onto the paper and I didn't wipe them away. Rhodes had seen it coming. He had known her in a way I hadn't wanted to believe. The legal process continued, but the sharp edge of fear left me. Colette's petition was eventually dismissed. The fraud review didn't go her way either. I didn't hear all the details and I didn't ask. I didn't need to know exactly what punishment she got. I only needed to know she couldn't reach into my life anymore. Months later, on a quiet afternoon, I sat in my living room while my baby played on a blanket, kicking his little feet and babbling at the ceiling fan like it was his best friend. Sunlight warmed the carpet. The house smelled like clean laundry again, just like the day we brought him home. I picked up Rhodes's letter one more time and read the last lines. My chest still ached, but it didn't feel like it would crush me anymore. Selah stood in the kitchen, stirring soup, and called out, "He's laughing again." I looked down and saw my son smiling, wide and bright, drool on his chin, eyes shining. For a moment, I could almost see Rhodes in that smile. Almost. I leaned down and kissed my baby's forehead. I did it, I whispered. Not to the baby, but to the air. To the space where Rhodes should have been. I kept him safe. And the quietest revenge of all was this. Colette didn't get my baby. She didn't get Rhodes's money. And she didn't get to rewrite the story of who I was, because I stayed calm long enough to let the truth do the damage. Now I'm going to step out of the story for a second, because I want to say something real about what happened. When people are grieving, they get tested. Not always by strangers, sometimes by the people who claim they love you the most. And the scary part is how polite the pressure can look. It comes wrapped in concern. It comes with soup. It comes with soft voices and little comments that make you doubt yourself. But here's what I learned the hard way. Loud pain makes you look unstable. Quiet proof makes you look undeniable. I stopped trying to convince anyone with my emotions. I stopped explaining myself to someone who wanted me off balance. I started writing things down. I started saving what was said. I started letting silence do its work. And I also learned this. Asking for help is not weakness. It's strategy. It's survival. It's how you protect the parts of you that still need to function. If you're in something like this, don't fight the person. Fight the pattern. Stay calm. Stay boring. Let them get confident. Let them make the mistake. Then hand the truth to the right person and walk away. Because the moment you stop begging to be believed is the moment you become impossible to control.